delighted to be back here with Josh today as part of our You Are Hired series and talking about the wonderful world of job hunting. So Josh, thanks for being back today.
Glad to be back. Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Josh, last time we spoke, you were going through the interview process. You'd got a couple of interviews coming up. What can you share with us? What's happened since?
Those couple of interviews extended to a lot more, and it's been a really fantastic learning experience, but confidently saying that I have signed an offer already. So it's one of the fastest turnaround processes I've had during a job search. But that's where I stand today. The title of the series, You're Hired, very fitting. I got hired, so worked out very well. So I'm in a good place today.
So how long has the process taken from start to finish? So what are we, 3 months?
Not even. I think 2 months in total, depending on when you officially count as the starting point. Because, when I left my previous job, I didn't start looking immediately. I took about a week and a half just to compose my thoughts. So for me, the beginning process is when did I start writing my resume? And that's been about 6 to 7 weeks ago. It's incredible, honestly. I was, being on the other end when I was hiring candidates, the expected turnaround on average was about 2 to 3 months, 2 months minimum, with the expected average of 3 months or more. So throughout the entire interview process. So for me to have something in under 2 months, I couldn't believe it. But that's, I think, an indication of the job market right now. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
there's so many people hiring, and they're keen to get you through that door faster to get you off the market so that no one else takes you.
The one thing I'm interested to hear about, so you obviously had a number of opportunities that you were going for. How did you decide the ones that, were key? Which ones stood out and why? Not necessarily around the actual job and the role, but in terms of the company itself.
Yeah, so I had a very clear objective in mind when I was seeking a role. I wanted somewhere that was very open to experimentation, had a clear two-way communication cycle, so both upwards and downwards, and it was regular, and a great company culture. And that there's a lot to dissect from the company culture aspect for me, but communication was one of the largest aspects of that. Within that is there space for development? And those were some of the biggest decision-making factors for me. There's a couple of organizations I interviewed with, the interviewers were amazing people, super knowledgeable, incredibly friendly, but there was just something missing in the discussion where we just, personally speaking, I didn't feel like there was a click in terms of that level of respect, that level of communication. So yeah, those were a lot of the qualification and disqualification factors for me. Finances and payment is always important, but the baseline of expectations that are setting to these interviewers, I just was shooting high just to see what the responses were in these interviews. So I was shooting for salaries, I would say about 20K euros above what I'd be comfortable to settle with. And most of these people just didn't even bat an eye. So it made me reevaluate what's my value. It made me understand better what's the value, what the market expectations are. There are services out there that help you kind of gauge that on your own, but it was really cool. So for me, the learning experience was shoot for the stars. Though that's the only way you'll know if you're asking for too much. Sometimes when you shoot too high, the interviewer might grimace a little bit and try to bring you down. But if they have a relatively neutral response, that means there's space for negotiation and push upwards. So yeah, those were the main factors.
Interesting.
Finances were at the bottom, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And what about, the size of organization? Did that matter to you?
A little bit, or actually, yeah, it did immensely. But to be honest, I didn't really apply for roles at organizations that exceeded 600 to 700 employees. I'd heard through discussions with my family, with other former acquaintances, what it was like to work for a larger corporate environment. So organizations that have thousands upon thousands of employees. And it just wasn't something that was for me. I'm a very agile worker. So for me, it was important to have a lot of flexibility and the ability to shift your strategies on a dime. I mean, not to say, having predictability is incredibly important, but having flexibility and responsiveness was critical to me. And speaking to people is like, that's not something you'll get from a larger organization. So honestly, I didn't even apply for roles at companies with more than 600 to 750 people, because I knew these kind of organizations would have certain processes in place that would feel like moving a mountain.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't even something I sought out.
Interesting. So obviously the Circle Society, one of our kind of goals and missions is to create a great working environment within broadcast media, entertainment and AV, and keep our people in the industry and drive new people in. And you're going to be leaving the industry, I hear.
Yeah, unfortunately. I had quite a few interviews with organizations within our industry. And again, I cannot say this enough. They were fantastic. I really love the people in the video tech industry. I was just brought out into another organization in the software development space. There, like, as the Godfather quoted once, it was an offer I couldn't refuse, and not in a bad way. A lot of the video tech space, there was two organizations specifically. I don't want to name them. I don't want to put people out like that. But there's two organizations specifically that really stood out, that had an amazing culture. It checked all of the boxes: culture, compensation, development, communication. It checked all of the boxes. But the missing piece was, what are the job specs, what are the role responsibilities, and who are my reports. So my interest was, I want to be a team lead. And although some of these organizations in our space check the disqualification boxes, they didn't necessarily offer team lead positions, which, fine, role was great, but it just, it was just one thing at the new job, at the new position, that stood out above and beyond the others. Like, okay, I really can't. But yeah, it's, I love the industry. I'll of course be keeping tabs on it. It's one of those things, once you're in it, it's hard to get out. Especially, it is very B2B oriented, but even as a consumer, having the fully technical knowledge, but having a knowledge of what's happening behind the scenes, I almost feel like a super informed consumer now. There's certain electronics I look for specific codec support, for example, or when I'm looking at streaming services, it's, oh, hey, what are they, what's the audio visual tech? What kind of encoder are they using? What kind of playback is enabled? Is my information secure? I love the information that I'm walking out of the industry from. But hey, I am going into software development space, which might circle back and come back to video one of these days.
It may very well do. So tell me, what is the new role? And what are you going to be doing? You're obviously going to be a team lead.
Team lead. I'm actually going to be head of department. I'm moving into a head of growth marketing role, where I don't know the exact number, but the expectation is I'll have 3 to 4 direct reports, which therefore expands to a team of 10 to 20 people. Completely unexpected. I'll say this candidly. it's a leapfrog in my career. I feel very ready. I'm very excited for this new challenge. But I went from a contributor to a top level position and I love it. And I'm really excited for the mix of experience as a contributor coming in and applying the strategies that I've learned over the past 5 years from that top level. I'd love to set the standard that, hey, uh, I've been there very recently. Let's work together to elevate your ideas and deliver. So it's incredibly exciting.
Oh,
I can't
I'm
wait.
super, super pleased for you that it's all turned out great, Josh. If you had to give, one last piece of advice to somebody looking for a job at the moment or considering going on that job market, what would it be?
Oh, wow. One piece of advice. This applies to my salary expectations as well. Aim high. Aim way higher than you imagined. I was looking for head of demand generation roles or senior marketing manager roles. And I just applied to higher level roles that were head of growth marketing, VP, and very unexpectedly didn't just get my foot in the door. I was getting into interviews and I was getting into later stages of interviews, of course, resulting in this new opportunity for me. But as long as you know your value, as long as you know your worth, aim high. The worst that will happen is that someone will say no, which, that'll happen in any situation once you're interviewing, but aim as high as you can. And work mid case scenario, they have lower level roles too. You apply for high level role, maybe it doesn't fit, they'll fill you in the middle. So it's just, don't underestimate yourself and to aim high. Those are the main things. You can go into specifics of how you do this or what you're looking for, but I think that's the biggest piece of advice. Aim high. And that was something that I wish someone told me when I started. I had a few acquaintances that told me, hey, you can do this, aim really high. I didn't believe them until I tried it.
Well, you certainly deserve that new position, Josh, and they are extremely lucky to have you. I've enjoyed working with you over the last few years, and you've certainly got what it takes. So, congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And just because I'm officially out of the video tech industry as a worker within it doesn't mean I'm getting out of there. I hope to
Well, I hope we
continue
get
within
you
the
back
circle
one day.
society. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, when I came into the video tech industry initially about 4 years ago now, that was one of the glaring issues I'd noticed. We kind of have a silo and everyone just kind of learns through experimentation, and there's not much learning that comes from other industries. So that's kind of where I'm hoping to stick around. I love to
Yeah.
have this exchange, this cross industry exchange. What works for you? What doesn't work for you?
I think
What
that's
works in,
yeah, great.
yeah.
Absolutely great idea. And they can have you for now, but hopefully we'll get you back in the industry one day. Josh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure.